think, as a progressive, as someone who wants a better world and a better country, the goal should be to bring as many people into our tents as possible to do that, right? Again, try to get to the 99% where we're all together against the 1%. That'll never happen, of course, but hey, that should be the goal. That right?
Right.
Instead, with this cancel culture, as you say, we're finding more and more reasons to shun people, to push people out of the tent. And this is counterproductive to social justice. This has nothing to do with social justice. I learned a term, again, after I wrote the book and being interviewed about the book. I learned a term, a Freudian term called the narcissism of small differences. And this is what's happening here. And what Freud talked about was when you have a society that is somewhat tribal in nature, the various tribes will find small reasons to kick people out of their tribes, frankly, in order to have a sense of belonging within their tribe, right? To cleanse the tribe of the unholy and unwashed, right? Now, I think that is what's happening with this cancel culture. It's a means of people to feel good about themselves and righteous by pushing others, even those who agree with them on almost everything, but they find, oh, but you don't agree with me on, all gender issues. So goodbye, you're gone. This has nothing to do with building a movement. A movement-oriented left does the opposite. They're like, hey, you and I disagree on many things. But what we agree on is that workers are getting screwed and we need to change that. What we agree on is that war is bad, that the country's spending too much money on war, not enough on us. Let's get together. And of course, the irony on that issue is that I find that liberals have given up on that issue. They don't care about war anymore.
It definitely seems like it's out of sight, out of mind. It's not here. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. And conservatives, actually, a lot of them do care about it. That's an irony, but I see that as a good thing. So let's work together on that issue. Instead, people are like, don't talk to them. They're conservatives. Oh, yeah, they may be against war, but you don't talk to them and work with them, right? That's insane. And one of the great examples of where the liberal and even left, if you call it that, has gone off the rails on that issue is Democracy Now! Right? They used to be called the War and Peace Report, I think for most of their existence. Now they're the Quarantine Report. Fuck you and your quarantine. That's what
right.
That's a joke. And they supported the war on Libya. And Libya now is a hellhole, thanks to that intervention. They attack every, independence movement around the world. So they've totally gone over, right? And now they're the Quarantine Report. And now we have Amy Goodman telling us to socially distance and wear masks. Again, I'm fine. I do those things. We should do those things. I don't need Amy Goodman to tell me that, okay?
Right.
That's not why I go to Democracy Now! But that's all they have left for me, is to tell me what everyone else is telling me. Well, then you're useless as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, that's where the left has just gone off the rails for me.
Right. And so and to your point where you were kind of getting to where you were talking about hey, we have these things in common and why don't, even though we disagree on other stuff, why don't we work on this much larger thing? That's kind of where I was going with our union discussion, because what as I understand it, and I'm sure you can confirm, you're involved in them much deeper than I am. It is people that are of, they're different sexes, they're different races, they're different religions, they're different, everything about them, their social background, their family background, their neighborhoods or whatever. All of this is completely different, but they are, in one aspect, they are completely unified so that they can work for bigger goals together and collectively, make a greater good for them.
Yes, absolutely. And this is what I talk about in my book. I happen to have had the privilege of, for many years, representing District 8 of the Steelworkers, which is Appalachia, right? I represented people in West Virginia, Kentucky, the Appalachian regions in Virginia, Maryland. And these are people who, I talk about this in my book. If they walked in your house or they walked in the restaurant, many people would say, look at that. Look at those, hillbillies with their Harley Davidsons and their tattoos with the American flag on them. And they got their West Virginia drawl. And they must be a bunch of racist and hoo-haws, right? These were very intelligent people who were militant unionists, who I respected greatly, and who respected me, by the way. And I have my statue of Lenin here. I had that at work, and they didn't give a shit.
Right.
They didn't buy any of that stuff, but they thought it was cute. And look, on a lot of issues, I'm sure we disagreed. I'm sure many of those people are pro-life, for example. I'm sure many of them are not up to date on the latest, iterations of gender that are out there. But that didn't matter because we were working on trying to improve people's lives, as you say, regardless of race, regardless of gender. But they tended to be much more enlightened than many people in terms of those issues. The steelworkers fought for trans rights within the workplace. And that's the official line of the steelworkers, is to support trans rights in the workplace in terms of bathroom rights, that sort of thing. So these were great people that I worked with. But it's those people that are being vilified right now. They're being looked down upon by the elite left, which is pretty much all that's left of the left. By people who think they know better and think that people in West Virginia should just, be freaking, should just secede from the Union because, they're all a bunch of rednecks. And that bothers me. That bothers me a lot, especially given if you look at West Virginia, first of all, why is it West Virginia? Because it didn't want to be a slave state, so it left Virginia. It has some of the greatest history of worker rebellion in this country, right?
Right.
And that has to be respected. And even, it's not old history. Remember a couple years ago, there were those big wildcat teacher strikes in West Virginia. And yet those people have been vilified